We came across the best product by chance, really. Our spraying contractor that we use arrived one day with his boom spray to start the knockdown for the cropping season, early cropping season, and he had this yellow drum in the back of his ute with best written on it. And I happened to look at it, and while he was filling up with the water, I was reading it, and I said, "What's this?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "It's some brown muck that comes from Canada." And so I rang the 1-800 number, and lo and behold, I had a representative not too far away, and I called him, and he said, "Well, you better come down and have a look." So my neighbour and another friend from down the road, we hopped in the vehicle and we went down and had a look at some trial work had been done. He had a paddock that had been sown to a cereal crop, and it had only just germinated, and it had had one boom width of best sprayed on it. And he gave us a soil penetrometer probe, and instead of showing us, he asked us to go and find where it was. And we were three of us walking across this paddock. Passers-by must have thought we looked like idiots because we were pushing this thing in the ground, and we could not get it in the ground more than 5 centimetres. And we came to a place, and it went in up to the handle. And it was me that was doing it. I thought there must be a hole, an ant hole or something or other. So we went another couple of metres, same thing, down to the handle. Well, we soon worked out that he had an 18-metre boom, and we were able to work out the direction he travelled across the paddock. So within 6 to 8 inches of each other, one would go in the ground only an inch or two, the other would go into the ground all the way to the handle. And at that stage, we still had a fair amount of scepticism, and we were trying to work out how he could have done that. But we obviously came to the conclusion that it was just purely that's where the product had gone on, and that's what the product had done. So I took 2 drums home, and we used those products straight away. And I think within probably 6 to 8 weeks of using that best product, we had bought enough to apply to our whole farm. So not only have we used it in our cropping, we've applied it to our pastures. Mother's even applied it to her garden. So, and on the roses, it's everywhere. And we now practice a rotational grazing system, and we had 6 relatively small paddocks and 1 very large mob of sheep. And by the time they had finished the 6th paddock, the first one then again had too much grass to spray. So we had to do the whole thing again. And I'm sure my neighbours were watching on, wondering what was going on. But we couldn't, even with a very large group of sheep, we could not contain the growth. And I have not seen that here, ever. I used to belong to a discussion group, a farmer discussion group, and I don't belong to that discussion group anymore. Because they weren't very, when they first asked me to explain what it was I was doing, the contorted looks on the faces I knew I was inflicting pain upon them. They just could not handle the fact that you could farm like that. And yet one of these farms, we were at, they're friends of ours, and a fortnight ago on a Sunday we were at their house at a barbecue, and the barbecue had to finish early because he had to go and feed his livestock. Well, I got plenty of feed, and he's only, as a crow flies, about 5 mile. So our rainfall, it would be different, but it's not going to be that much different. We've effectively have got money in the bank because we're not having to pay for the feed to go and feed them. Normally we would be feeding right up through till now. And there's still farmers in this Holbrook district that are still feeding livestock now. And another way that the local farmers could make themselves feel better about what they were seeing here, that we must have been understocked, that we didn't have enough stock, but we actually are fully stocked, and we could probably have some more, but I'm just been so used to feeding livestock, I am just wallowing in the relief of seeing fat sheep walk around everywhere, and I really don't want to take any extras on at the moment. I'm just happy to see all that happen. The one thing we have noticed since using the Best product is that the sheep now graze the paddocks more evenly, where traditionally they would have had camped in a particular area and they would have grazed out from there. So you get some areas of the paddock that are completely grazed out, and other areas of the paddock where the soil might have been a bit sour, or it was, for whatever reason, the sheep wouldn't graze there. Now we're finding, as in this paddock that we're standing in now, that it's grazed evenly all over. We're not seeing those issues anymore. The stock aren't preferential at all, no. And that means that we're getting greater pasture utilisation, and flowing on from there means we're getting greater wool growth, greater lamb growth, quicker growth rates and better turn-off, and hence better for our business. We have seen this year, for the first year, an increase in our fertility of our flock. Whether it's the Best sprayed pastures, I don't know, but something's happening, and we had a significant increase. We have a breed of sheep merinos, and they are renowned for being infertile. And we joined some young ewes, and I was not expecting very much. And when we pregnancy scanned them, there were very few in the group that weren't in lamb, and that's nearly unheard of. For them just to be out, those results can be achieved by intervention, by feeding. These animals had had no feed at all. They'd just been out in the paddock and grazing. And I'd had the rams put with them at a certain time of the year, and I was expecting them to disappoint as they normally do, but they didn't. They surprised me. It was amazing. I can't put that down to anything else except they're eating healthy pastures. And the pasture, the dry feed through the summer, must be of greater value to them as well. This will be the third year that we have used no synthetic fertilisers at all. We are using a seed dressing that has phosphorus in it, which is 100% plant available. We know we have, some of these paddocks have enough phosphorus in them to grow 5-tonne wheat crops. We just need to make it available. Insects, last year was the first year that we did not spray for any insects. This year we have not put on any insecticide at all. We have not put on any fungicide at all. And last year we found when our neighbours were madly spraying for rust, we had one very, very small patch. And I took the position that I would let the crop deal with it itself, which we did. I'm sure we took an economic hit from not spraying it, but that was a hit that I was prepared to take. The crop did recover, and we did harvest grain, but not as much from our other areas. But it was only a very small area. So we're not using any insecticides, we're not using any fungicides, and we're not using any synthetic fertilisers at all. We're very keen on what's happening under the ground, more so than what's happening above the ground. And we've done a lot of soil testing and a lot of tissue testing, and we're finding that our nutrient balance is starting to become more even, and we've found that we are lifting our soil pH. And last year we found that we lifted our soil pH an average across our farm by a whole point. And we have for years and years been putting out lime, lots of lime and little bits of lime in different areas, and to no avail. So our soils are very high in calcium, but that calcium must have been locked up because it wasn't doing what it normally does. In our traditional farming method, we would have had what we thought was a very large plant above the ground and a very small root structure below the ground. Now we're finding it to be in most cases 50-50, so the roots are the same size as the plant above the ground. and in the odd case you'll find that the root mass below the ground will actually be larger than the plant above the ground. I use a contractor to harvest our wheat, and he's been coming here now for a number of years, and the season just gone, he drove his header into the first paddock, and I got up into the cabin with him and we looked down on the crop, and he said, this is a 4-bag wheat crop. And I said, well, I was disappointed that he said that, and because I thought it would have been better than a 4-bag wheat crop. And away we went, and he was mumbling about price of fuel and so on and so forth. And I got out of the header and went off to do another job. And he called me on the radio sometime later, and his question was, "What the hell have you done here?" And I had to quiz him to find out what he's talking about. He said when he got into the paddock, he said, "This is a 4-bag wheat crop." He said, "We just finished the paddock and it's averaged 14 bags, which is, just under, well, it's about 2.8 tonnes to the hectare." And I was very pleased with that. And he could not believe it. He could not believe the size of the grain and the fullness of the heads. And so he, for the next week while he was harvesting here, he was badgering me to find out what I had done. And so I'm pleased to say now that he's now a best client. So we're trying to improve our soil health. So we can't see what goes on below the soil unless we dig it up. They say that for you to visibly be able to see a difference means that if it's a cereal crop, there's 10 to 15% difference in yield if you can see it with your own eyes. We were advised initially to do a trial. I was so convinced by what I had seen and what I had heard that my trial was leaving 10 acres out rather than just doing 10 acres. So we did the whole farm except for 10 acres, and that was in a cereal crop. Those 10 acres weren't worth harvesting. It was evident when we drove in the gate, even from booting stage of the crop, you could tell the line in the paddock where the boom spray had and hadn't been. And those 10 acres, we didn't even bother harvesting. It was that significant difference. So that was a lot more than 10%, a lot more than 10%.
You think you're going to use Best product again next year?
I think so.